It's another night of demonstrations in Hong Kong. Activists have been protesting at malls across the city. Tonight, hundreds are rallying in Tsim Sha Tsui amid a heavy police presence.
Well, groups are gathered near the police station on Nathan Road as well as near Star Ferry and Canton Road. Our correspondent Leong Wai-kit is in Tsim Sha Tsui and he joins us live now. Wai-kit, what's happening right now?
Well, it doesn't seem to be many people at this rally, not as many as journalist friends and I had expected to be. I counted earlier around 200 people, and there could be a reflection of various causes, like you said earlier. There's heavy police presence, or it could also be a reflection of the mood this evening. Many shops, many malls are closed early, anticipating that protests would take place tonight. Today, of course, is World Sight Day, and this is a yearly event when there's attention and awareness brought to blindness. But people here, protesters here, are using this platform to remind one another that two women in the protests have been hurt in the eye, and this is supposedly by police who fired either rubber or sponge bullets. So they want to take this opportunity to remind people that there is police brutality. Now, what stood out for me at this rally is that in the past I've heard people chanting in English 5 demands, and the response would be not one less. Now, for the first time tonight, I'm hearing 6 demands, not one less. Of course, officially it is still 5 demands, with universal suffrage being the most fundamental. But when I asked protesters, what is your 6th demand? Not everybody was able to tell me. One person at least told me that the 6th demand is to disband the police. So this is going to be interesting to watch from now, because remember, on the day Chief Executive Carrie Lam announced an emergency law to ban face masks, one of the chants had changed from Hong Kongers press on to Hong Kongers fight back. So if this is going to be another change, it's going to be interesting to watch, because remember, the authorities have already said that the protests that we see night after night have gone beyond the 5 demands that these people have been asking.
Yeah, Wai-kit, the government also announced some updates this afternoon. Now, what can you tell us about that?
Well, they released some figures, for instance, the number of railings that protesters removed from the roads to make barricades. They add up to 42 kilometers, which is the distance of a marathon. They also said that about 400 traffic lights were destroyed or damaged. But what stood out for me aren't the figures. What stood out for me was the government's stance. It is very, very clear to me that they are now appealing once again to the softer side of Hong Kongers, appealing to the rational side. They raised examples of how violence and damage had affected Hong Kong citizens' lives. For instance, government facilities that were damaged or destroyed by fires. They highlighted some of these buildings, government buildings actually provide healthcare services to people like the needy or the poor. They also highlighted that cleaners suffer the brunt of it, because night after night of protests, these cleaners have to be deployed overnight. They have to clean up the streets. They have to clear posters that were stuck on the roads. They have to clear spray paint. And when my team and I finish every night covering protests, I notice that the cleaners are usually around 60 to 50 years old. So they are people who are on the older side. So the Hong Kong government is obviously targeting the softer side of Hong Kong citizens to appeal to them to cut off ties with violence. Of course, they once again stress that dialogue, peaceful dialogue, is the only way forward to solve this political turmoil.
All right, many thanks for that. Leong Wai-kit speaking to us from Hong Kong.
As part of the fallout from weeks of protest in Hong Kong, the city's Transport and Housing Chief, Frank Chan, says the MTR is facing a shortage of parts after continued arson attacks and vandalism at stations. The city's rail network will be suspended again this evening from 9 p.m. as some stations are still under repair.
MTR has only been offering limited services since last Friday. Meanwhile, Apple has removed an app from its App Store that protesters in Hong Kong have used to track police movements. Apple says the crowdsourcing app called HKmap.live violated its rules because it was used to ambush police. Apple says criminals also used the app to victimize residents in areas with no presence of law enforcement. Apple had rejected the app earlier this month, but reversed its decision on Friday, allowing it to appear on its App Store. The approval drew a sharply worded commentary criticizing Apple in a Chinese state media report. Under Apple's rules and policies, apps that meet its standards and appear in its App Store have sometimes been removed after their release, if they were found to facilitate illegal activity or threaten public safety.